So I'm the Director of the Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for Nanoscale Biophotonics, and I'm the Head of the Neuroimmunopharmacology Research Group. So we've known a lot about the brain and the spinal cord for quite some time. We know that the wiring of the brain and spinal cord are really important for sending the electrical signals throughout the central nervous system. But what we haven't understood or really appreciated is what the other brain, this other 90% of the cells of the central nervous system, is doing in both health and disease. And what's become apparent is that these cells are very, very important for how we behave on a day-to-day basis, but also how we then become sick. So one of the classic questions is, how do you actually know that you're feeling sick? So how do you know that you've got a cold or a flu or even a stomach bug? Because if we understand the infection is happening throughout the body, that is somehow communicating into the brain. But if the brain isn't able to recognize immune signals, we can't actually translate that from an immune response into a brain wiring response. And this is where some of the exciting developments of these immune cells called glia is coming to the forefront as we understand that this other brain is really important in health and disease. So my research group is really interested in how these immune cells in the brain, these glial cells, contribute to exaggerated pain states and to addiction. We understand that these immune-like cells are almost like volume controls all the way down the wiring of the neurons within the brain and spinal cord. And in states of illness, like in chronic pain, these volume controls get turned right up, so a touch becomes painful. And this is really problematic for people who experience chronic pain on a day-to-day basis. But interestingly, these same volume controls exist within our reward centres within our brain, and they can amplify and turn up reward signals to things that we shouldn't really be enjoying very much, like drugs of abuse, for example. And so our research is looking at how these immune cells are critical to creating addiction states and leading to people using drugs that they shouldn't be using. So my research has demonstrated for the first time that addiction and reward processing is not just about the wiring within the brain and spinal cord. The wiring within the reward system is extremely important for communicating these rewarding signals. However, this system gets hijacked by drugs of abuse, and it gets hijacked by the activation of these immune cells around the reward centres. And so what we've been able to do is design drugs that are coming in to selectively say to those immune cells, hey, it's okay, you don't need to over-respond. And what that does is it means that people are now being able to come off their drugs of abuse without significant addiction and withdrawal. That means that they're now able to go on and live otherwise healthy lives without the fear of their addiction anymore. So many of the drugs that are out there today only target and are designed to target the wiring. That's only 10% of the brain. So we are now working together with our medicinal chemist partners to develop new drugs that are targeting the immune cells in the brain, and so that we can keep people healthy and happy without the long-term consequences of this immune activation in the brain that we've never seen before. So we use a variety of models to examine how these immune cells contribute to behaviour. We use studies in human populations using very small immune challenges. So we make them a little bit sick, and then we start asking them questions of how they're feeling and how their brain is processing information. But what we also use are animal models and cellular models, where we start asking the immune cells of the brain, how do you respond under specific conditions? And do you, for example, become activated after being exposed to drugs of addiction like heroin, cocaine, methamphetamine, and alcohol?